I'll feed anybody, but I'm not for everybody. My name is Chef Derrick Green, and I find people that have turned their life's experiences into ingredients they use to feed others. We're redefining soul food. These people have turned their adversities into their advantages. This is the Sauce of Life show, and let's go. So, Mike Nicklas, Big Mike, welcome to the Sauce of Life. Bro, this show is about people that have taken their life's experiences and turned those into ingredients that they now use to feed others. Truly, it's a redefinition of soul food. With that being said, Mike, please introduce yourself to the world.
Hey, everybody. This is Mike Nicklas, and my friends call me Big Mike or Good News Only because I focus on the good things, even though bad things happen to us. But yeah, I would say I'm a one of 8 kids, born in Chicago. I was the number 6 kid of 8. Thank God my parents were Catholic because they just, for some reason, they love to procreate. And here I am. I talked to my mom even today. She's 90. I'm like, what were you doing? Anyway, we knew what she was doing. And then, I basically grew up in Chicago, moved to New York, lost a brother and a sister along the way to leukemia, unfortunately, and then moved to New York and lived in a beautiful town called Huntington Bay, and where my mother still has her home at 90 years old. And lived in an area that was really good. I remember my dad saying, no more vacations. We brought you to Huntington Bay. We lived right near the water. We had tennis courts. We had a beach. And he was like, there's no more vacation. Because we used to vacation in Chicago. We were like, where are we vacation this year? You have a vacation like 100 yards out down the road, and it's called the water, and you're gonna be good to go while you're here. Unfortunately, my dad didn't get to see it very long. He died at 44 of cancer. So some of the unusual sauce that was delivered and stirred in my life was death, sickness, and realizing that our life is short and that you better realize that it's your best equity is your time and not your money, because money is great. Don't get me wrong. People like having money, but it's just a tool to have fun in my eyes. So had older brothers. We had 5 boys, 3 girls. My older brothers, they were awesome because they used to beat the daylights out of me. We were always punching each other in a loving way. But my one brother, Chris, used to say to me, yeah, you're going to love me one day because of it, because I'm going to make you tough. The wild thing is I went on to get a scholarship and played college football in University of New Hampshire. So whatever he did and my family did and the sauce they gave me in my life was really that relationships matter. I always use this terminology that, your relationships, are like, you got to look at yourself out on the ocean and you're a ship and you got your mentorships, your friendships, your partnerships. And you got to make sure that those ships, the people they put on your ship aren't sinking it. You better have only people that can help you. So it's real important. Relationships are so big. And the value of a relationship is so crucial in your life.
Wow. Man, you just put a lot out there. And I appreciate it for it. Let's go. I want to tell you, brother, I met you through Tim Story and World Shakers. And I don't know if I've ever shared with you the most impactful thing that I saw you do or heard you say. First of all, I love your thing about ships, and I want to go into that more. But the thing that had the greatest impact on me was when you and Bruce took me to Venice Beach. And what I noticed about you was that, so you manufacture swimsuits. And
yeah,
that you were looking at all these different body types, and you didn't dismiss one of them. I didn't see you dismiss a single woman walking on that beach. You were looking and you were saying that this type suit would fit her best. This style suit would fit her best. And I just remember sitting back and going, like standing there going, let's see the value in everybody, every one of these women walking by, and they may be having the toughest time thinking that they're fat or ugly or misshapen or whatever. And you see the right way to put the right thing on them to bring out their beauty. Bro, where does that come from, that mindset to be able to see that value in people?
Well, first of all, I've been in the women's swimwear for about 30 some years. And over time, when you're sitting with merchandising teams and you look at all shapes and sizes, you know that everybody needs a product to put on their body when they're most vulnerable on the beach and in front of the mirror. Because what I discovered at a very young age, no woman really likes how they look, period, in a bathing suit, or probably period in anything. And so what I realized was the equal part, or the equalizer, I would call it, was that we just got to find what does look good on them, and there's a suit for everybody. And somehow looking at one of the greatest products that I've ever dealt with is a brand called Miracle Suit, which is a suit that just is amazing. They started that about 20 years ago, the Waldman family, and they used to put hang tags that were like 4 feet high. It says, look, 10 pounds less in 10 seconds. And that brand went on to this day is probably the number one brand in America. And people don't even know it, but the women who wear it know it because they respect every woman, not just some of the women. So part of it was just understanding that everybody's out there and everybody deserves, let's say, coverage at some level. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
No, that's beautiful, bro. I'm telling you, it was beautiful because we were there at Venice Beach, and I mean, it's a muscle beach, and you're looking at the fitness competition is where you guys talk about. So there's all these very low body fat women there. And then there's everybody else, and you just treated everybody the same. And I just see you looking at them, and it's something to admire, sitting back, looking at you, looking at everybody else, and all of them are potential customers.
Yeah.
There's something for her. That's not the right suit for her, or that is the right suit for her. This person.
I was talking to a friend yesterday, and today this couldn't happen, but in the beginning of my career, I used to give lots of seminars to women at Macy's, Nordstrom's, all the retailers across the country. And they'd have these shows where training seminars, and they would bring in all of the people that worked on the floor at the stores. And here's this guy, 6'4", 240 pounds, telling them what suit looks right on the right body. This girl with this size cup should probably be wearing a halter neck with a banded bottom, or this girl here should be wearing a hipster with string sides versus a slim bottom without the strings. And this one should use a midriff area equalizer, which is diagonal to make a thin appearance. And they all want to look good when they're out in public because they're exposing almost every piece of their body. And today, that I'd probably get in trouble for actually talking that way to a group of women. It's interesting too, because 30 years ago, the industry itself, the women's swimwear industry, was led by mostly men. And today, I think it's probably 80% women. Like the people out there, designing the suits. There are some really good men's designers. Matter of fact, there are a lot of good men's designers, but maybe it's because a man can look at what looks good on a suit, and he has a better, maybe he's got a perspective of, boy, they'll look good on you because I know that if you did it, you wouldn't think it looked good on you. But, if it's coming from some perspective of, man, this is how a woman would look really good. That's how some of the designers work, whether they're women or men, I don't, hopefully
that's a good perspective there. Because as you were talking about that, I was thinking, men and women would have very different perspectives on how they look. If a woman were to ask me for an authentic response of, does this thing make me look fat? And if I responded authentically, if I was brave enough to respond, realizing that I'm talking to a praying mantis and I'm about to get my head ripped off potentially, then, I think there would be a lot more women walking around with clothing that made them feel attractive because they're actually getting the opinion of this guy that's saying, dude, you would look amazing in this, this, and that, but don't do that because that makes this look, eh. But brother, you're the
what's interesting about the swimwear business, when Miracle Suit came out about 22 years ago, there was really not a solutions based swimwear company. When I say solutions, more along the lines of what, fast forward 22 years, Spanx and clothing, right? Where it's basically helping a woman feel more secure in her garments, right? So in swimwear, you have to even feel extra more secure. But what's happened is Miracle Suit has become the go-to brand. Matter of fact, I chat GPT the other day, what's the best solution swimwear in the marketplace? Miracle Suit came up immediately. And it's wild to use ChatGPT, and even ChatGPT knows it. I mean, that's probably the most brilliant person in the world, right? I mean, ChatGPT makes us better thinkers. So I was just playing with it. I'm like, who's the best solution swimwear? And I did it in a meeting. I was in a meeting with one of my customers, and I said, hey, let's try this, because I'd already done it. And they're like, oh my gosh. I go, if ChatGPT says it, you got to buy more.
The consummate salesman, look at you.
That's right. Glass is overflowing, you know what I mean? And I don't sell people, I serve them. And when you serve them, you're actually, it's a different perspective. I don't like the word sales, in all honesty. I like the word serving, because I always tell people I don't want to push anything, but I'm willing to pull anything, especially if I'm serving you an opportunity to become a successful with our product. Then I'm serving you, and you need it because your customers are asking for it, or your guest. And sometimes it's semantics that people deliver, because most people think of the salesperson as this sleazy person that's just a car salesman, and they're just looking for the commission, right? And I don't ever consider it. I've never been a chaser commission. I've just tried to serve people something that I know they need. If a retailer has a buyer for swimwear, then they have a buyer for swimwear. Right. So they need to be served with the best product possible for their department. Right. So right. You're not pushing anything on them. You're serving them something that they need. Right. And if we're the solution swimwear brand, we're the niche that probably going to be the best margin product in their store. Matter of fact, our Miracle Suit company doesn't sell any of the discounters. We don't sell Ross. We don't sell TJX, so that they know that the product is on the upscale. It's not cheap. They go over $200 at retail,
Yeah.
Crazy. As opposed to the thongs that you see out there on the LA beaches, where, the people in the fitness area that are just, it's almost like, I don't know, I don't want to look like a creep. So I'm like looking away, And those suits probably cost $1 to make.
If a person is paying attention to this, the audience paying attention to the words that are coming out of your mouth, they can hear the amount of wisdom that just pours out. And while you're talking about swimwear, you're also talking about things that relate to life. You don't sell, you serve. You're finding value in every single person that you look at. You provide the same level of service to the end user as you do to the corporate buyers at these locations as you're going in and having these meetings, and you're letting them know, hey, here, I'm meeting a need that you have. I'm addressing a need that you have as a solution for this problem that you have. And where does that come from, man? You said you're the sixth of 8 kids. Where did that desire or that inherent thing that you have built up in you now to serve others, where did that come from?
I'm a man of faith. I believe that God gave me a gift called energy, and He also gave me the gift to be the lighthouse for others. I kind of like when you go out on your ship and someone's in a dark moment. I want to be that lighthouse where it's lighting up, and they can come to me and talk to me, and I'll try to figure out how to brighten their day. It's sort of like, are you the person that walks to the room and say, there you are, or the person that says, here I am? I used to interview people, and I would be like, I'd ask them that question, and everyone would hesitate. Like if I asked you, Derrick, are you the person that walks in a room and says, there you are, or here I am? Who are you even? I don't want to reverse the interview, but
yeah. Hey, listen, we're going to have a conversation. And that is actually a critical thing that you've mentioned there, because I've heard you say that before. When you walk into a room, do you say, there you are, or do you ask, or do you say, here I am? And you and I have both been in rooms where there are a lot of people, more than enough people, that say, here I am, the life of the party, I arrived.
Yeah, yeah.
People that can develop the mentality to say, there you are. What you do for swimwear, I try my best to do when it comes to human potential and people living in their purpose. You're a man that's walking in your purpose, so you can constantly look at people and say, there you are. And it's like looking at that body type and saying, there you are, and there you are. And I get that. coming from some of the traumas that you've had, you said you lost a brother and a sister to leukemia, and then you also lost your dad at 44. Were there certain impacts that either of those had on you? And did you lose your brother and sister at the same time?
No, I lost my brother before I was born, and then I lost my sister. She was younger than me when I was 5, and she was just turning 4. And but it's funny, not funny, but I mean it's interesting how my childhood memories, I could dictate each of those days, even though I was only 5 years old, almost 6. I remember that day. I talk to my mother about it sometimes. Remember, Alba was across the street. You yelled across, it's Suzanne, please take care of the kids. And we lived in a neighborhood where everybody took care of everybody. We lived in a community where you could rely on your neighbor, borrow sugar. And that kind of, that community feeling always stuck with me. And I'll never forget that, like how helpful they were. And then fast forward to when my dad was sick. He was sick. He died at home. He was sick. We lived in Huntington Bay. And what was really neat about our community, Derrick, was that we had nurses throughout the neighborhood, the community, line up and schedule their schedules to give my dad the shots he needed during his last 18 months of his life. And then, on top of that, the neighbors for 18 months fed our family dinner every night. They arranged it. There were no computers back then, so they were like piece of paper. They had a little thing, schedules, sign up. We had a little bulletin board down at our beach, which was called Bay Hills, and the people would sign up for, okay, I'm gonna make dinner this night. I'm gonna make dinner this night. So everybody signed up, and then the nurses. But just think about those communities still exist. I think they do. They're probably far and few between, but I mean, I personally had heart failure when I was in 2007. I had heart failure, and I had some of the neighbors come by and make us dinner in our neighborhood where we lived, and that was kind of wild too. I was like, wow, it's just coming back. It's all coming back. It's just like these things stay in your system, and then all of a sudden, like I'm not a believer that these things don't exist. I always think as if they do exist, you just got to know where to go to find them. It's like, it's the as if theory rather than the, poor me theory. It's not the violin, it's the trombone,
Man.
So,
Like, brother, you spit wisdom without even realizing it. Like you're such an authentic and genuine dude. So I'm listening to you and I'm feeling the emotion of the moment and wondering which direction to take this thing for the audience, because on the one hand, it's like the impact that must have to be able, you're talking about the community coming together. And I remember when my wife was going through chemo, she was in the FBI. And when that was announced, I mean, everybody came together and people brought us food and what can we do? How can we help? And all that type of stuff. And to realize, like, I can only imagine what it must be to see all these nurses coming in, these people that maybe you know them and maybe you don't know them.
I knew them all.
Well, see, that's beautiful. Yeah. Even to grow up in an environment where you know all of your neighbors and you can, like you said, knock on a door and borrow some sugar or some butter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Even borrow they're offering sauce of life to us. You know what I mean? Because that's what it really was. I mean, I was growing up where my mom had a bell in front of the house where, it was a nice neighborhood and she'd let us go out. We'd play kick the can or tag or catch, and she'd ring the bell when it was dinner time, and we'd all run home and we had dinner around, and then TV dinners from Swanson came out. And I think about it today, how awful that was, because all the sodium, and like, I don't eat that way at all anymore. But I can imagine for a mother who's dealing with a husband at the time that worked and commuted, right? And then she'd have to have dinner on the table. TV dinners were like crazy good, right? It was before the microwave. And they were like, she would be like, all right, we'll just heat them up and each kid gets peas and little, But yeah, our neighborhood was pretty cool. And not only that, I lived and grew up, I grew up as actually a Catholic. And, we always said, how can we lift people and make people feel respected? Like we can thank people. We can share credit when we do something nice. We can listen attentively. We can humbly ask questions, acknowledge others, smile, and try to be a smiler to the people that I look at life at like everybody runs around. I give the comparison to the garbage man, right? He's driving around and you're just picking up garbage all day. And sometimes you just got to let it out. You got to let the garbage out. Our life is like collects garbage and collects garbage and collects garbage. And then you ever get to that point where you don't even know someone and maybe you cut them off by mistake and they're backing up and yelling at you, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, I'm waving to them. Hey, how you doing? It's good to see you. Good to see you. And then, you're thinking to yourself, they're just releasing the garbage. They'll probably have a better day after this now. They're going to have a better day,
That's actually, I accidentally cut someone off yesterday. Complete mistake. Just being here in Houston, listening to the map, and it had me cross a bunch of lanes. And this person, man, just laid on the horn for like a full 15 to 20 seconds. And at the end, like I'm waving, and it's like, I do believe that they'll probably have a better day now. They're going to drive down the road, curse a little bit, but maybe that's the release that they needed to get rid of that tension that they have, Oh,
if they don't know how to sigh or breathe correctly, it's like, man, there's so much noise. And I own a brand, which I'm very proud of, called Good News Only. I know I told you about it, goodnewsonlycollection.com. And what's interesting is one of our top selling items is a shirt that says starve the noise. And it's tough to starve the noise for people that don't practice it as a habit. You know what I mean? Like you and I both know when noise comes into our proximity, right? We also know how to probably either try to see if we can turn the noise into joy, or we look at it as if, well, we need to walk away from this because this is just noise and it's going to get louder. Because starving the noise is very, very important. I think it's one of the things that, unfortunately, the people that we're so divided today for whatever reason. I don't know. We don't think enough about how love is the most important thing in the world. You got to love people. I think my sauce in life is I just always loved people. And you get disappointed by people for sure, and then you just love on them anyway. And they may not be in your life anymore, but you pray and love on them. It's like all good. When you just be a good person and you're kind and you're loving and you're caring, like you can't really be discounted. Other than some people, I guess the word is jealousy, which is the most dangerous thing in the world. Danger. One of the dangers of the world is jealousy. And we've all been there. I used to be a jealous person, but the minute I got over being the jealous person, I became the more secure person. And the only time to do that is when you love yourself, because how do you love others if you don't love yourself? Right.
Right.
That's important. And I noticed that when I had so many deaths in my family at a young age, and then I had my heart failure, I realized, people say, you only live once, and that's not true. I think you live every day, and you just have to learn to live every day. You can't live in the future. You got to live in the present, And I think people try to live in the future. Like, okay, you got a plan. I get it, but you and I are present right now. We're not in the future. We never will be in the future. We'll always be in the present, and that's probably why God made present that word, because it's a gift. Honestly.
No, it's beautiful, brother. And I wholly believe that living in the past is a recipe for depression. Living in the present is a recipe living in the future is a recipe for anxiety. And it's only living in the present with gratitude that you can actually learn to appreciate everything that you have around you at that moment. I just had this conversation with somebody where they said, okay, I get another 24. I woke up this morning. It was a motivational guy.
Yeah.
And he goes, man, I'm thankful to God I get another 24. And I said, brother, everything that you just said, because he did a whole thing. He's like, everything you just said was beautiful. I just want to correct one thing. You don't know that you have another 24.
You don't?
I had a cousin named Bobby that woke up. He went to the bathroom to pee. He had a grand mal seizure. He fell and hit his head on the tub. That was his last day on the planet. He didn't get his 24. And it was like, you have to learn to stay in the present right now and appreciate the time that you have. So, Mike, I appreciate your time. Yeah. And I have a question for you, brother.
Yeah.
This came up in a previous interview with someone else who had lost a parent at a young age. Did you feel responsibility to step in at your mom's losing of your dad, or was it something like how did she do it? She'd already lost 2 kids and then she loses her husband on top of that. How did that impact her? And then how did that impact you as well?
Well, I was 15 and it was sort of like he was my hero, right? So all of a sudden you're like the guy, and I was an athlete. So I leaned in to my athletics, football and lacrosse, and just started playing sports, and because he was always there. So it was a reminder to me that, he's got my back. He's not with me, but he's got my back, because I have him inside me. His memories are just my heart. It's like, woo, let's go. So I poured into that, poured into coaches, and lent in on what I could be with him, not as my guidance counselor, which, you miss that. You want everybody, when you grow up, or maybe when you're little, you think about, I'll always have my dad to lean on, and my kids, I've got kids, and I tell them all the time, lean on me. I'm good. Call me anytime, 724, 86,400 seconds in a day, whatever that second is, you right there in the moment, call me, you know what I mean? Unless I can't talk. But I think, one of the things I did with the 8 kids, because, look, I have some of my siblings that put the word FUN in dysfunction, but they in the dysfunction side of it, but they're fun, I mean, and you have a family of 8, you're going to have some, some people are different than others. I'm not perfect. They're not perfect, but we're all kind of fun, and I think I brought energy to my family, and I'm not saying I'm the glue, but I might be we always teased like, yeah, you're the funny one in the family. I got an older brother, Greg. He's actually funny in his own right. He's 6'7". He's got a size 17 shoe and he parks it in the driveway. We used to tease him about it. I don't think he liked it. Today he likes it, but when he was little, he didn't like hearing, yeah, your feet are so big, we could bathe in that shoe, teasing amongst one another. But I had a lot of siblings, and I had an older brother that really stepped up because I was the third brother, 1, 2, 3. I was the 4th brother in line. And I fueled it to become a strong, where I wanted to make my dad proud because I believed he's overlooking us. So I still do to this day. And my mother, she just trooped forward. What's interesting is my mom's my best mentor, because my mother had all these kids. And my dad, back then, sure, he had life insurance, but let's think about that for a second, like how much inflation just takes over. She's still in the same exact house. How did she do it? Like she got his pension, some of the other stuff, but how did she manage that with all those kids, getting them all through college, getting them all through high school? Like, wow. I mean, I think about it today and talk to her about it. Like, Mom, you did great. How cool are you? And she's like, she took it upon herself to become her own entrepreneur. So we lived outside New York in a bed and breakfast community, about an hour train ride into the city, where a lot of executives lived, and we called them dinks, double income, what are they called? Urban professionals, we'll call them. And so they commuted, and they had children that lived in the area. My mother babysat for kids to keep us in that house. So she would have kids dropped off, and I had other siblings coming into the house. Like, my mother decided she'd become the place for babysitting. Unfortunately, 15, 16 years later, somebody turned her into the neighborhood and she had to stop doing it, but she had no money. So then my brother built her an apartment in the basement. So she started renting that out to people to make money. So she always figured it out, even to this day, she still figures it out. 90 years old, still figure it out. Right. And so my brother built an apartment. We started renting that out, and then somebody turned her in, and you're not allowed to do that, So it's crazy. So anyway, and as kids, we all pitch in and help her. She's awesome, but talk about a mentor, man. She just never, ever, ever give up. And then most recently, my sister found out she had cancer. So she's after 3 chemos, and you have this, this, what this is about personally, on a personal basis from your wife. She went through 3 chemos, and then she was supposed to be operated in December, and then she had a stroke. So now she's just came out of a rehab center where they had to teach her some new skills, but she's coming home, and then she's going to start chemo again next month and then be operated on in February if everything goes along plan. And, you look at all these challenges, and I'm going to bring up one. I belong to this group called the Pierside Saints. We meet at 6 a.m. If anybody hears this and they live in Dana Point, please come by, California. We go to Dana Point and we read the Bible. And we're a bunch of, and it's all guys, a bunch of men from 16 to 80s. We sit around on our Tommy Bahama beach chairs, put them out at 6 a.m. It's still dark out. Now, mind you, it's still dark. And we read the Bible, and then we talk about how it applies to our daily life, which it totally does, as you know. And one thing, one guy said in May, we talk about, do we need prayer for anybody? And we put them in the middle, we put our arm on them, and we talk, we pray for them, right? This guy said, he said, I had a stroke in May. And he said, but the interesting thing about the stroke, it alarmed me. It let me know that I went in with the stroke and discovered I had cancer. And now he's getting, anyway, I'll pick up from where I left off. But what's wild is he leaned in stroke and discovered he had cancer, and now he's managing his cancer, right? So here's the good news. It's never good news to have a stroke, but it's great news to find out that he had something he wasn't even aware of.
Right.
Crazy how some challenge like that could come up.
What you just said there is actually important, man. You said there's never it's never good news to have a stroke, but I've known people that have had light strokes and then it changed their life completely because they woke up to something, a new reality. They woke up and it was no longer just a saying that life is short, life is precious, enjoy the time that you have right now. It was a wake up call. And there are people that have completely changed their lifestyles because of those things and those health issues, those health scares. So there's an argument to be made that there was some good that came out of the stroke. And I can only imagine, bro, you said 16 to 80, the amount of wisdom, wisdom that must exist in that group. And to be able to sit in fellowship. I belong to 2 men's groups as well. And being able to sit in that and just hear and absorb, soak up like a sponge must be amazing.
Powerful. And if you're ever in town, you got to come. It's great. I mean, and the people there, we're not judged by what we do. We're judged by who we are, which is always how I wanted to be. Like, I like the fact that most people don't know what I do for a living. I'm so proud of that. Like, I'm proud of it. It's not like I don't want to be defined by what I do. I want to be defined by my character and my integrity and my value and my loyalty, and my consciousness that you're in the room with me and that I'm going to celebrate you because I want to be in rooms that I'm celebrated, not tolerated. So important to me. If you're in a room where you're not celebrated and you're only tolerated, you need to change rooms. How many times you go into a room, we just feeling like you're tolerated, and it just happens for all of us. No matter who you are. You could be the greatest person in the world and most loving person. You could be, we all know some great people. Like, I think Robert F. Kennedy is a great guy, but he's in some rooms where he's just tolerated,
Yeah. Mike, I don't think anybody with any amount of emotional intelligence doesn't recognize quite quickly what you do for a living. You change lives. And I do believe that you're a lighthouse, like you said. I do believe that you bring that energy when you walk in there. And earlier you mentioned these different types of ships. You're a lighthouse. You're a beacon of hope for all these types of ships, relationships, friendships, all these different things, partnerships. Can you expand on that a little bit, man?
Well, I look at my life, especially when I had heart failure, where I didn't know. I was told that you'd have another 7 years to live back in, 2007. Didn't happen. As a matter of fact, I'm in total sinus rhythm, and I've been good since. I've had a couple heart surgeries, ablation surgeries that have been great, that they've corrected me. But it was an eye opener for me that just make sure that while you're in the water out in the ocean, you're going to have turbulence, and the water's going to go up and down and up and down, and just make sure that everybody that's on your ship, no matter what ship, because I think the word relationship is based on the fact that you're going to have a mentorship, you're going to have a partnership, you're going to have all sorts of ships that you get to invite onto your ship, and make sure you're putting the right people on your ship. Because if you don't, you want someone to help you bail you out. When you have close friends, You should be able, when you really think about it, I thought about it the other day. You have to have a couple people you can call when you're at your low, because we all get there, where we're just having a dark day. We're defining ourselves by a bad moment, which you should never do, but we do. We define ourselves by a bad moment, I mean, I'm not proud of a lot of things I've done in your life. I'm sure you aren't either. I'm sure the people in the audience, they're not proud of some of the things they've done too. But you got to be able to call someone. You got to call that true friend. But it's interesting because I think you might have 5 people that you could call potentially, and that's really cool. But let's think about the reverse. How many people can you call to celebrate a great moment in your life? It shrinks. Why? Because you feel like you're bragging, or you feel like, I always try to tell, if I'm going to share with one of my good friends, I call it sharing. Hey, look, I'm just sharing, but I'm super excited. This just happened. And man, I'm so stoked. I wanted to tell someone, and that they're genuinely happy for you. Think about that for a minute. Isn't that strange? Like when you're down, but you should be able to have a couple people you could call when you're up, right? And we always focus on when you're down.
Wow.
I want to celebrate Derrick Green. I want to be one of those calls where you say, hey, Mike, guess what? I just got the following happened to me. Super excited. I had to share it with someone. I'm bursting. But that number of people shrinks. It's weird, right?
As you said that, I'm sitting here thinking, who are the people around me that I can call for celebration? And it just honestly sunk into me that most times on my best days, I don't have many people to call because I don't want to hear the negative that's going to come out of them.
So true. The doubters, the haters, they're not a great fit if they're not celebrating you. That's why I always like to use the term for your audience is please stay in rooms you're celebrated in and try to remove yourself from the tolerated rooms. It's not good for you. It's unhealthy. I'm not a toxic guy, but I think toxicity is so contagious. It's more powerful than positivity, unfortunately.
Wow.
Crazy.
Just sitting, now you have my brain going because it feels like there are people for which it's easier to be negative and they can meet you at the negative place where you are than it is for them to exist in a positive vibration because maybe they're not experiencing that positivity or they're not experiencing that level of vibration that you have, which I personally, going back to something you said earlier, believe that love is the highest frequency. Love is the highest vibration. And in my mind, God is love. Love is God. Those two are synonymous with each other for me. I mean,
I agree. 100%. Yeah. Wow. When you talk, I think we talked about that on the beach. It was even for those that don't believe in the Bible, right? I mean, if you took the Bible and put the word love instead of God, which I wouldn't do, but God is love. So if you did it, man, I'll tell you what, if you lived the life like Jesus Christ did, you'd do pretty well. You'd have a happy life. And let's say you're wrong at the end, no harm, no foul at all. I mean, you lived a good life,
right?
Honest, integrity. You cared about others. You created miracles. We're probably all creating our own little miracles and we don't know it. The other day, this is wild because I do this at the right time or in the moment. I'll be in a drive-thru at Starbucks and I'll pay for the guy behind me. Hey, I want to pay for the guy behind me. And then they come up and they go, oh my God. And I drive off. Right. So I did it the other day for a police officer. Right. And the police officer came out and pulled me over. He pulled me over. He put his lights on. He's like, hey, thanks a lot, man. I go, oh yeah, no big deal. And what's wild is it happened to me like I guess it was 3 weeks ago. I was coming to Starbucks. Oh yeah, the people in front of you paid for you. I don't know. So it's one of those things where I try to do that just for no reason at all. Because, you have to live life without expectations, right? When you go into something with expectations, you're expecting something when you should just be doing and serving, right? That goes back to the word, let's just serve what we do to people and be nice, be kind, be loving, be present.
Wow.
It's be neat and clean, never criticize anybody. I learned that as a teammate because I was fortunate to go to college and play college football. I was never that good. I wouldn't get a scholarship today, but I did then. I got several offers and I took one to the University of New Hampshire and still wasn't, I thought I earned it from the energy I put forth in getting it. So I received it. And you know what? The best part of it was my friendships in that and my teammates. That was the most important thing. And like, it's interesting when you're in a locker room, there's a different kind of culture of loyalty that's beyond, like, you lay down for your brothers. You know what I mean? Like, those are my brothers, man. Even to this day, my friendship group from my teammates and my football, they're some of the greatest friends in my life. I love them. Do you have some disappointments along the way? Yeah, you do, but you got to lean in and correct it. Lean in. If you don't lean into your, whatever the stress is in something or an occurrence, or like I said, a moment, it's so very important not to let bad moments define you. I remember asking a coach once, what's the hardest thing you have? He was a high level coach. And I said, what's the hardest thing you have to deal with? Convincing a player that he's better than the last play. So when we look at our life and our present moment, we're going to have bad moments. How do we convince ourselves that we're not defined by this last bad moment? We're not. And then move on, because you have to move on, right? And that's a tough one for coach, because there's 11 players on the field. And, if I'm a offensive guard and I'm taking a step with my left foot and I was supposed to take one with my right, I could ruin the play for the other 10 players. And if it happens and it destroys that play, I could either let that define me or move on and correct it on the next play. Because you're getting right back to the huddle or no huddle, getting up to the line, you better get going. Next time you're going to get it right. It's sort of like failure is like free education. Failure is so important. You fail into your success. I know that sounds crazy.
How did you fail into your successes, Mike?
I think when I was a curious person in every company I've ever worked with, and I learned a lot. I remember my first job was with a company called Milliken and Company. It's a fabric company, and I sold piece goods, which is fabric like this, and I sold knits, and I was curious. So in my company, we had different divisions and everybody worked in a silo, right? And I didn't like the fact that I worked in silos. So like my failure was I went outside the silo, which in the eyes of some of the other leaders of this company was wrong to do. So in this one particular example I'm going to give you there was a great gymnast. Her name was Mary Lou Retton. She was one of the greatest gymnasts of my time. And so I had a chance to bid on a program she had, but I didn't have the fabric in the cylinder that I lived in at this particular company, right? Now, I could either like, oh, well, or I could say, hey, my company's a big company. I know they have a library on the 8th floor. So I went up to the library, which is a no-no as a junior salesperson at the time. And I'm going through and, basically stealing, we'll call it sharing fabrics, and I'm pulling them out. And long story short, I earned a 9 million yard program at 21 years old with J.C. Penney's. And I thought to myself, that's a learning failure moment where I failed to follow the rules, but on the other side of it, I became a hero within my total company. And that next week, Roger Milliken, the top founder, said to me, I want you to tell your story on a stage. They had a big, so I'm 21, they had 1,000 people at a meeting in Georgia at a place called the Pine Isle. And he said, I want you to share your success. We're going to start something called success rallies. So they used to talk about successes. So I learned about how to celebrate successes. Back to what we were talking about earlier. How many people do you in your group could you tell? But in front of a group, I wanted to show them what I did. Now I want you to know, I got called in by some of the other silo managers. They weren't happy at all that I did this. But you know what? Roger Milliken was. And so about a year and a half later, I decided I couldn't work with an organization like this that didn't have other leaders that understood that sharing is a good thing. And that although we have to be entrepreneurs, Bruce and I talk about this a lot, one of your previous guests, entrepreneurs are as important as entrepreneurs. If you don't hire entrepreneurs, I was always an entrepreneur. I sold seeds. I sold flowers, candles as a kid. I had a paper route. I mean, I was just doing it because I loved it. I loved to be around people and serving opportunities for my neighbors, going door to door. I think door to door is the best way to learn how to become a server, because I'm trying to keep that sales word away from. I remember one time I basically borrowed. I talked to my buddy, and I wanted to go down to the Kentucky Derby, and I always wanted to go. It was on my bucket list, and I was 19 years old, and I talked my best friend into borrowing the money from his mother, and we'd make T-shirts and sell them outside the Kentucky Derby. We'd go a week early to make sure we sold them all. And I remember his mother, and then we borrowed his mother's car, and we lived in New Hampshire, so we were going to drive down to Kentucky Derby. I created this art illegally, printed it on a shirt that I paid $2 for. I was going to sell them for $20, and I was going to pay for my bucket list with my best friend. And we were going to go have a week that will just be a memory bank forever. And it still is. It's one of the greatest adventures. And I did it subsequently for many years past that. Illegally, I did it the first year. And I found a way to get my T-shirts into the infield. But we're 2 days before the end. We still had, I'd say, 1,199 shirts out of the 1,200 still to sell. And my buddy's panicking, and I'm like, no, it's okay. We started driving around, and I saw a RV park. I went door to door in the RV. I sold 80% of the shirts that day to the RVs before the Derby. This is your memory, $20 each. We were selling eight per RV. I just figured it out. And the failures are only failures if you believe they're failures. It looked like we kept going to retail outlets, local, and they were saying no. So is that a failure? No, we just kept trying to figure out, well, that didn't work. Well, that didn't work. Because I think failures help you learn what didn't work and move on to what will work. And we found it, we made it, and we had a ball. The stories, at another time, we could tell more stories.
Brother, that is awesome. I took a note right here, and I wrote, because I think it was 2 weeks ago that I introduced this concept. Well, it's not my concept. Nothing that I say is original, man.
They're all words.
But
everybody.
There was this realization one day that I had of there are man laws and there are God laws. And the way that I explained it was I said, my kid actually asked me, my son asked me, he said, what do you mean by a man law? And I said, a man law is something like the speed limit. Today, man decides that the speed limit on this road is going to be 25 miles per hour, but man can also decide that speed limit is going to be 35 miles per hour or 15 miles per hour. They'll write you a ticket based on that speed limit. A man can come and change that at any given time. That's a man law. A man can decide, like what you said, that you can't go and sell these shirts the way that you were doing because this is a man law. But they may change that law. And now it is legal to do exactly what you did. But a God law is something that never changes. 2 + 2 is always 4. Anywhere that you go, no matter what time of day or night it is or where you are in the world, a God law is always there. Love, for me, is a God law. And the voice that you hear inside of you that motivates you or inspires you to do that thing in spite of what man laws might have stopped you is a God law. There's not enough people, in my opinion, in the world that are willing to listen to the God voice inside themselves and go after the thing that they want in spite of all of the fear, all of the doubt, all of the laws or the rules that say you shouldn't do this thing. And you've just given 2 amazing examples of listening to the God voice inside of you and following the God law, believing in yourself and how that worked out for you versus being restricted by the man law. Man would have said you can't go up to that floor to get the yarn.
Yeah. Yes, correct.
And then God turns around because you did follow your dream. You did listen to the voice. And you said 9 million yards with Jason.
9 million yards. It was a big order. Yeah, it was. I became a mini celebrity and a hated celebrity at the same time because the leader of the other division, they had an activewear division and a knitted division. I worked in the knitted division, and the way it was lined up when I was a kid, you had the leader of the division was in the chair behind you. This is the way it used to be run, and there would be all the people in front. I was in literally the first chair, which means that I'm the most junior person, right? And so I had a mentor there. He kept telling me, put your blinders on, put your blinders on. And I'm like, I'll put my blinders on, but I keep looking over there and it looks like there's something over there. I kept taking one eye off it was like, yeah, okay, there it is. But you're right though. I mean, and also being curious, I mean, my feeling is I have to do the best I can until I know better. Right. And when I know better, I'll do better. And a lot of these guys at this company, Milliken, I remember the guy's name, Tom Leppard. Hey, that's illegal. I go, what's illegal? I was teaming up for the company as all. Yeah, but that's not their division. We have our own budgets. And I'm like, yeah, but you fail to see what I've done here. I brought the company a foundation business from a large retailer. And at the time, JCPenney's was the largest retailer in America. Now, not today, even though they're still open, but JCPenney's at one point was the most powerful. They were more powerful than Walmart, Target. Sears was the other one. They were all the cat's meow. But when I was the highest pressure I had on me though was the Kentucky Derby, and I had my buddy's mother lent us the money to buy the shirts. We paid for the shirts, and we had to pay her back. It's like, oh no. And my buddy, not anxiety driven, but hey, we better sell these. We better sell these, and we did. We had a great time. We created a memory that'll last for a lifetime, right? A lifetime. I talk about that story all the time. Life is full of stories, storytellers. When we get together, you and I, we've told some stories. That's what it's all about. Like, what's your story? What's your sauce?
I would love, brother. I want to respect your time, and I try to keep these interviews between 45 minutes and an hour, no more than that. But I want to absolutely have you back on again to share some more stories. Because like I told you, man, you drop nuggets out of your mouth without even thinking about it. Just this is something that I'm going to have to go back and listen to. And I hope those of you out there in the audience that have listened to this will go back and listen to some of these things over again to just pick out all these little pearls that you just.
Yeah, if I could end with this, I've got 10 rules in my life and I'm going to share them. I'm going to drop them on you. Is that okay?
Oh, absolutely.
10 rules. First of all, be present. That's so important. The now is the only moment you have. So don't run it by dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. We talked about that early on. Number 2, give it time. Things are quietly unfolding, even if you can't see it yet. And time heals everything. I promise you. Number 3, be grateful. We talked about that. The more blessings you count, the more blessings that will flow in. Number 4, exude and profess kindness. You never know what others are going through. I mean, you have to choose to spread more love. We've talked a lot about love, spreading more of it. We need more love in this world. Number 5, let it go. By releasing what no longer serves us, creates a space for stuff that will. Number 6, don't compare. I think comparison is a lonely highway. Unfortunately, for the people that spend so much time on Instagram, the only person you should try to outdo is the previous version of ourselves, right? And then 7, take responsibility. We have 2 kinds of people that look out the window and blame the world. I want you to be the person that looks in the mirror and blames yourself for anything that you need to change. Embrace the change is number 8. See it as an opportunity for growth and transformation, Derrick. Nothing changes if nothing changes. If nothing changes, it's your choice. Choices, you don't change, then it's your choice. Number 9, cultivate resilience. When things go downhill, choose to bounce forward instead of staying stuck or even moving backwards. And we talked about number 10 throughout this call. See the light. There's always something to smile or laugh about. Choose to see the good in every situation you're in, because you know what? Be the light so that you can see the light. There you go.
Bro. Man. You have to come back on. We need to continue this conversation because I believe that you and I are meant to change lives. People like you and I were put here to impact the lives of others. And it doesn't matter what we do professionally or what we get paid for.
It doesn't.
Yeah. So
want to be the light.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I said, we just want to be the light, man.
That's it. 2 final questions for you, brother. And I should have said this before I let you run through your 10 things, but that's going to make this last question even better. So the first question is, where can people contact you? Those that want to follow you or be inspired by you.
They can go on and email me anytime they want at Michael, Michel, G Nicklas, Nicklas at Gmail. Or they can go to my website, goodnewsonlycollection.com. That's Good News Only Collection, just how it's spelled.com. And I don't need anybody to buy anything, but if you see something you like, check it out. I even collaborate. Some of my biggest orders are companies that call me and they want to do one of my sayings on a shirt, and I put their logo on the back, so they can contact me there.
Okay. And then Big Mike, if this were the last time that you and I spoke, or the only time that someone from my audience got to hear you speak, what is it that you want us to walk away with?
I would say, understand that your greatest currency in the world is time. You get 86,400 seconds in a day. What are you going to do with it? And make sure you love the ones that love you, and even love the ones that don't.
Spoken like a real man right there. Brother, I appreciate you. I thank you for being on the Sauce of Life, and I'll catch you next time on that.
I love you, brother. Thank you.